r/petty revenge. The airplane cleaner stole my AirPods. About 6 months ago, I had a layover in Houston. After deplaning and going through security, I realized my headphones had fallen out of my pocket. I submitted the lost item claim with United and gave the description of the color of the silicone case they had on them. Plane info, seat number, the whole thing. I also set it to lost mode and included my phone number to call me. I emailed United a few times, stating I could see they had moved from the plane to what seemed to be the United office space. I now realize it was probably employee lockers. After about 24 hours, I saw them go to an apartment building. I watched them go from the apartment building to the airport, back and forth, and tracked the schedule. I gave United the address of the employee, their schedule, and what days they had worked. Surely the home address and schedule was enough to pinpoint who it was, so they could at least deal with it internally. Wasn't exactly excited to get the AirPods back if they had been wearing them. United told me that because the AirPods had left the property, they wouldn't do anything, and I had to file a police report with Houston PD. I live in Arizona. They closed my claim. I use Find My a lot for various AirTags and things. So, for the last few months, whenever I see my lost headphones with the earbuds out, I hit play sound on the earbud and blast the wearer's ears out. I see them quickly go back into the case. If they would have called me when they found them, I happily would have sent them a reward, even enough to buy their own basic pair. I understand they are expensive and not everyone can swing a pair. I am slowly working toward making them go deaf, so no one else loses a set of headphones to them. I think this is the pettiest thing I've ever done. r/AmItheAsshole. AITA for refusing to go to my SIL Baby shower, and the rest of the family is following. Edited to be clear, this started soon after my brother married Ruby. At the time, everyone seemed to really like her, and my older sister and I were part of her bridal party. Her wedding was around 5 years ago. Soon they were talking about trying to kids, and they were struggling with infertility issues. Ruby was quite upset, but it got a lot worse when my older sister, she was 26 at the time, got pregnant. Ruby was snappish and mean to my oldest sister, and people tried to be very mindful since she was struggling. When the baby was born, Rudy didn't send anything. I got pregnant my senior year of college. It was an oops baby, and I only told my mom because I was unsure what to do. I was a heavy drinker at family events, and when I wasn't drinking, my grandma joked I must be pregnant, and my face gave it away. That is how it came out. I didn't plan to tell the family like that. Ruby, in short, lost her shit at me. She yelled at me about how I don't deserve a kid and called me a lot of names. My mom tried to make her stop, but she yelled at her also and told my mom she deserved the stillbirth she had. The whole thing was horrible. When I gave birth and I posted pictures online, she made a post saying some people don't deserve kids. She has not apologized. The issue, Ruby is pregnant and she is having her baby shower. All the women in the family got an invite. I talked to my mom about it and decided not to go. My mom is also not going, and everyone seems to be following my lead on this. We all RSVP'd no, and my brother called me asking me to come. I told him no, and it started an argument. He says his wife has been crying about being hated by the family and want everyone to make up. I told him that isn't my problem, and this is her fault. He wants me to suck it up and come still and has texted me multiple times about it. I know if I don't go, no one else will, especially since my mother hates Ruby after that argument at it. Because people asked, no, we probably won't have a relationship with the baby if nothing changes. I already don't allow my kid near her. I have a strict if you are a dick to me, you don't have access to my kids. Sister has the same. Mom probably will not be a grandparent to the child either. She will not put up with someone she hates to have access to a kid. She is not that type of person. r/MaliciousCompliance. If you won't ship to me because my drive is less than an hour, then I'll make it in an hour. I work from home for a company that makes software for mobile devices. Of course, a lot of the work I do requires having the physical devices. If I needed a specific one, I'd put in a request and they'd ship it to me. However, recently one of my requests to ship it was denied, and I was told I'd have to pick it up. Their reasoning? I live within an hour of the office, so I'm expected to come in to get them myself. The problem is, if you look up the drive on Google Maps, it does take under an hour, just barely. But only if you look it up at like 2 in the afternoon or in the middle of the night when no one is driving. If you look it up during normal commuting time, it's never less than that. I'm writing this at 7 a.m. and it's at 1:15. In 30 to 45 minutes, it's going to be even worse. I asked if I could just pay for shipping myself, since it would be cheaper for me to do than pay for gas and parking. Nope. Gotta come in. So now I come in. I take lunch, and then head in at 1 in the afternoon. I get what I need and immediately leave. It takes me just under 2 hours total, and because I'm only running in for a few minutes, I can leave my car in front of the building and not have to buy parking. 2 hours that I would normally spend doing work, I am now spending in my car. For some reason, I'm now back on the approved list for shipping. Edit. The vast majority of comments seem to be about mileage reimbursement. On paper, I'm hybrid, not remote, and the pickup site is the office I'm based out of, so it's a normal commute. I've never been required to travel to another site. r/AmItheAsshole. AITA, my friend ruined my yixing teapot, and I want her to replace it or give me $500. When I went to China, I bought myself a yixing teapot. This is a clay unglazed pot that gets seasoned the more you make tea in it. Kinda like a cast iron pan. Since it is unglazed, you cannot wash it with soap or any rough sponges. You clean it by using hot water, and then you let it air dry. Nothing else. This is the issue. I left for a work trip, and my friend watched my cat. I paid her. I told her she can use anything in the kitchen. My yixing teapot is not in the kitchen, and neither are any of my fancy loose leaf teas for it. I have a normal kettle in the kitchen for guests to use. I came back and found the yixing teapot in my sink, and it smells like soap. It also has multiple scratched on the inside. I called her up, and she told me she used it because she loved the tea I make with it. She then washed it with a rough wire sponge and used soap. She didn't know where my sponges were and didn't want to put it in the dishwasher. I tried to fix it, and I couldn't. Anything in it comes out with the taste of soap, and the scratches are just getting bigger with every boil I try. It's ruined. I called her up and asked her to replace it since she ruined it. She told me to just clean it, and I told her I have tried. She agreed, and I sent her to the teapot from the same store I bought mine that was most similar. It's actually cheaper than the one I bought in China. It is about $500. She called me pissed after I sent her the link and refusing to pay it. She claims I should have told her not to use it. I pointed out that it was behind glass and I didn't think I needed to. I asked her to pay again, and she is pissed. Should I just cut my losses? r/TIFU. TIFU paying for sex. I paid a sex worker to sleep with my friend who was still a virgin at the age of 28. For the record, I had nothing against my friend being a virgin at that age, but he was beginning to behave like an incel. He made it seem like women hated him, even though he never bothered to get to know any women. I was getting sick of listening to him complain about almost being a 30-year-old virgin, so I joked about paying someone to sleep with him. He was laughing at first, but then he asked enough questions afterwards to convince me that he might be interested in an arrangement like that. I decided to set it up for real. My friend, reluctantly, allowed me to share his contact information with the escort service as soon as I showed him pictures of the sex worker I selected. I did my part. A date was set. Payment was made. All my friend had to do was have sex. I received several sporadic calls from my friend throughout the evening that made me feel like I should never have done this. Call 1. He wanted to know if it was a good idea to masturbate before the sex worker showed up so he could last longer. I encouraged him to leave his dick alone and let the outcome be whatever it ends up being, come what may. My stupid puns made him laugh and managed to relax him a little. Mission accomplished. Or so I thought. Call 2. He wanted to know if he could send me a dick pic so I could tell him if his dick looked good enough. I said I didn't want to see his dick. He promised his dick would be flaccid in the photo to make the whole thing less gay. I said it was going to be gay either way before repeating that I did not want to see his fucking dick. Call 3. He wanted to apologize for sending me the dick pic anyway, but he also wanted feedback since he sent it. I told him to stop calling. I ignored calls 4 and 5, which prompted him to send me messages to please answer my phone. Call 6. He said he was thinking of calling off the sex worker because his bed apparently had a huge dent in the middle, which was unsuitable for sex. I suggested he flip the mattress on the other side or fuck on the couch, but to cancel sex because of a dent in the mattress that never bothered him before sounded like an excuse to back out. Call 7. He wanted to know what kind of food sex workers usually eat because he made spaghetti. I asked if he was asking me what kind of food people eat because sex workers were not a different species. He said most people he knew enjoyed spaghetti. I asked if there was anything else he wanted to know because I wanted him to stop calling. He said the next time he called, it would be to debrief. Call 8. He wanted me to know that he was spying on the sex worker through his bedroom window while she was talking to one of his neighbors outside. He said based on their body language, it was clear that the two of them knew each other. I asked if he was no longer a virgin. He said he struggled to get it up and subsequently gave up, and now he was watching the sex worker laughing about it with his neighbor. I said that's probably not what was happening. He said he was thinking of going out there and confronting them. I advised him against it, but he hung up. Call 9. The call came from me this time. No answer. Call 10. I called again a few minutes later. My friend finally answered the phone and said the sex worker left in an Uber when he eventually made it outside with the intention of inserting himself in their conversation. He said he asked his neighbor how he knew the woman who just left in the Uber, and the neighbor said he was one of her first clients. According to the neighbor, he was going through a divorce at the time after spending years in a sexless marriage, so the first thing he did to fix that was to fuck a 20-year-old baddie. My friend asked me if I was willing to pay for his therapy too, because not only did he fucking fail at fucking, but now his fucking neighbor knew they fucked the same sex worker. I said I was just trying to help. My friend thanked me, albeit sarcastically, and said goodbye. I think he's ghosting me now. TLDR paid a sex worker to sleep with my virgin friend. Dude struggled to get hard and gave up, which was embarrassing enough for him. But then he also found out his neighbor fucked the same sex worker he did, and now he's ghosting me because I was the catalyst. r/TIFU. TIFU by trying to be mysterious on a first date and ending up in a police report. So this happened a month ago. My friends physically cringe when I tell this story in person, so I'm putting it on the internet instead. Met Elena through mutual friends. She's an interior designer, travels, reads books, has opinions about wine. I eat pasta 3 times a week and consider that a personality. My friend gave me advice. Be a little mysterious. Don't reveal everything at once. Women love mystery. I, a man with zero mysteries and whose most interesting hobby is watching documentaries about bridge construction, decided this was excellent advice. We agreed to meet outside a cafe at 7. I arrived at 6:50 normal, but then I thought, mysterious people don't stand by the entrance like a bouncer. Mysterious people appear. So I decided to wait around the corner and emerge when she texted. Elena texted at 7:01. I'm here. Where are you? I started walking out from around the corner. And at that exact moment, a woman runs out of the building opposite and screams across the entire street. He's there, around the corner. I saw him. Turns out while I was standing around the corner looking mysterious, the neighbor decided I was casing the building. Called the police. Twice. I walked out from around the corner directly into 2 police officers, and Elena, standing there with her mouth open, explained the situation for approximately 15 minutes. One officer was taking notes. The other was trying not to laugh and visibly losing. The neighbor stood nearby watching me with absolute righteous fury. Elena said nothing. Then one officer asked, So you were just waiting for a date? Yes. Around the corner? Yes. To be mysterious. Long pause. Yes. The second officer laughed. Out loud. In uniform. On duty. We were let go. Neighbor goes home unsatisfied. Elena and I are standing on the sidewalk. She looks at me and says, Well, you're definitely mysterious. We went to the cafe. I told her about bridge construction documentaries. She listened for 40 minutes and actually asked questions. Third date on Thursday. The neighbor still eyes me suspiciously every time I walk past. I nod at her. She does not nod back. I hope the officer who laughed is doing well. TLDR. Tried to be mysterious, stood around a corner for 10 minutes, ended up in a police report, somehow got a third date. Bridge documentaries saved the evening. The neighbor will never forgive me. r/TIFU. TIFU going to my ex's wedding. My ex GF invited me to her wedding. It was unexpected, but I accepted. The invitation said the people who were allowed to bring a +1 were married or engaged couples. I was not engaged or married, so I went alone. I managed to couple up with another single guy at the wedding and stayed with him throughout the ceremony to avoid looking like I didn't belong. The 2 of us got separated at the reception because we were allocated to different tables. My table only had single people. As we got to know one another, we realized we had one specific thing in common. We were all exes of the bride. It was a little weird, but we made a joke of it because we assumed that was the point of us being there. Fast forward to the speeches. When it was the bride's turn to speak, she asked all of her exes to stand up which we did. She informed the audience that we were the people she dated and disappointed over the years before she discovered the love of her life, aka her husband. She wanted us to know how grateful she was to have been with all of us. But then she locked eyes with me and said maybe not all of us. She said my name and asked me to wave at everyone. I waved like an idiot. She warned all the women at the wedding to watch out for me because I literally peed on her. The husband stood up at that moment and covered the microphone with his hand while he whispered something to his wife that made her look confused as fuck. The bride sat down without saying anything else. The husband made an awkward joke about his wife having too much champagne and instructed us to please take our seats. The DJ intervened and asked if any of the groom's exes were also in the house, which actually made the audience laugh. The music played, and everyone pretended none of that just happened. Except for me. I got the fuck out of there as soon as the lights dimmed for the disco ball. DR accepted an invite from my ex to attend her wedding and ended up being named and shamed at the reception. R/MaliciousCompliance. Accused of stealing/embezzling electricity from employer. For almost 2 decades, I worked security in office buildings, night shift, so I could work on my novel drafts. At work, in the idle hours between rounds and other security duties, I wrote on an iPad with Bluetooth keyboard, and I had connected their chargers to the electric outlets in my security reception desk. I get a lot of comments on how I shouldn't write at work, and that was why I was singled out. These commenters are wrong. They do not understand that my work was guarding an empty office after hours between 23:00 to 7:00 hours. This involved a maximum of 2 hours of actual work, walking rounds, checking if all the keycards had been returned, answering phone calls, leaving 6 hours to pass the time and stay awake. Most of my coworkers filled that time with non-productive activities like watching TV, playing games, filling out crossword puzzles. Others were college students who studied for their exams or wrote on their thesis. And I knew this beforehand, which is why I chose a low-paying job way below my level specifically, because I would have hours to read books and write on my novels. They could only fire me if I fell asleep or didn't follow up on alarms, but not for spending the idle hours writing. I had a manager who had a personal problem with me and tried to get me fired. Since I performed my duties above average, he had to find a way to get me on something else. So, one day, I was called to HQ for a meeting with my manager and a floozy from HR, a young female intern from the Human Resources Department, who spent the whole meeting flirting with my idiot manager, who was married to the company owner's daughter. I was accused of theft, stealing electricity from my laptop. I told them that if they wanted to accuse me, they had to do it properly. I hadn't committed theft. I had committed embezzlement, since the electricity was part of my reception area and under my supervision. Therefore, embezzlement is a vastly more insidious crime, and they should send me home and gather the disciplinary committee to judge whether I should be fired for this crime, and I would confer with my union rep. They immediately retracted their accusation and stopped bothering me with their nonsense. All my colleagues charged their devices from company outlets, so their accusation would mean every employee could be arrested for electricity embezzlement. Then the irate manager hung up a sign in the security area that nobody was allowed to charge their personal devices. So I took a typewriter to work, so I didn't need to charge my writing implements. Also, I had a Nokia that would hold a charge for several days, but my coworkers had smartphones that needed juice, so they got angry at management for signs about not being allowed to charge their phones, and that complaint spread to other locations, forcing the management to remove the signs and allow people to charge their phones again, and I could hook up my iPad plus BT keyboard again. Addendum. The stealing electricity was just a rage-bait excuse to provoke me to get into an emotional outburst to my manager, so he could fire me for insubordination. Instead, my response made him escalate to posting signs about the petty electricity rule that angered my co-workers with management. Commenting on the cost of electricity misses the point. It was never about the theft of electricity. The accusation was intentionally ridiculous to provoke a quarrel. Also, in the Netherlands, the novel that I write is my intellectual property, and there is no legal clause in our contracts that the company should get financially compensated for part of the novel been writing under company time. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe for more.